Carolina politics. Sloan, welcome to the podcast. Delighted to have you. Let's start by giving our listeners and viewers just some sense of the landscape in North Carolina and what kind of got you on this track of investigating what these hospitals are doing.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And North Carolina it's dubbed the state of education and medication for a very good reason. We've got about 800 biotech companies, so major employer. We have twice the national average for pharma manufacturing. A lot of people don't know that. We've got 3 top-tier research universities, 5 medical schools, soon to be 7. So it's probably no surprise that we have become the mecca, if you will, for child sex change procedures. But this is very interesting. So we're the medical industrial complex. So we've got that, but it's juxtaposed against the population here in North Carolina. We're second only to Texas in terms of rural population. So it makes up about 55 to 60% of the people here that live in the mountain communities, farming communities. And, you know, we're center right and we're in the Bible Belt. So on the one hand, you've got this highly concentrated, if you will, system that's pushing down on the population things that they simply don't want. I mean, goodness gracious, 99.9% of the American population doesn't want offered to their children, 2, 3, 4-year-olds or all ages, screening for transgenderism, which is what we have here in the state.
Now, Sloan, let's walk through this because you as a journalist, as somebody who is interested in education, and I take it that part of what you're saying is this isn't just the medical community. Is it the medical community sort of in alliance with the sort of academic community in the sense that I'm assuming where did the therapists all come from? Well, they come from academia. Where's the propaganda being drummed into children? Probably in the schools. And then you have the hospitals. So is there a kind of are these two kind of massive industries in North Carolina working in concert toward a common and in some ways mutually profitable end?
Absolutely. And we call it the classroom to operating room pipeline. And it is in full swing. And the way that works, yes, is academia. So if we back up and we go back to 2015, here in North Carolina, we were battling the first ever bathroom bill is what they called it. It was HB2. But it was a bill meant to keep men out of women's spaces, men out of girls' spaces. And so exactly at the time that started, Duke University opened its clinic for children. They called it Children and Adolescent Transgender Clinic. And so we see right away that they were going to weaponize children in their war for Marxism. And that's what they did. Forget about, reckless treatment of children. And then we saw UNC follow. We've seen others, and now we see ECU, which it's interesting because ECU, Eastern Carolina University, it provides the lion's share of our primary care physicians and rural healthcare physicians in the state, but also throughout the country. And they're looking to be a mecca for child sex change procedures. And to your point, they're marketing it through school. So, the left is in an uproar about marketing e-cigarettes to children, but they have a direct-to-child marketing program in communities all over this state.
I mean, it seems, Sloan, that if we flash back to earlier campaigns by the left to take over various causes and get corporations or hospitals behind them, you had the leftist ideology on the one side, but the corporation's desire to maximize its profits on the other side. And so there was a countervailing force against the left, which is, hey, we don't want to do this stupid thing because it's going to cost us a lot of money. It seems to me one of the strange things about this transgender business is it's big business for the hospitals. It's a lot of money for them. So is this a case where sort of ideology and commerce come together, both pushing this time in the same direction?
Yes. I mean, if we look at Eastern Carolina University, and this is a big one we've been in because it's responsible for the health of 1.5 million rural citizens in 29 counties. And this is going on across America. This is by no means isolated, but they're facing, $100 million loss last year. And lo and behold, they're putting they're closing clinics, Denesh, 5 clinics they closed. The stated reason, They weren't profitable. At the same time, they're getting this program up and running and marketing it through the school. So it's a little bit of both, right? It's ideology, what we have found, because we've got 25,000 pages of documents, internal documents from ECU. So what we're finding is that you've got three, wacko cowboys, if you will, that want to do this program. And then you do have the suits in the C-suite saying, what was the price we could get for that? It's a recurring business. You mean we can create a chronic condition within 3-year-olds and bill for that? So it's a marriage of both.
Wow. Let's take a pause. When we come back, more with Sloan Rachmuth. She's president of the Education First Alliance in North Carolina. By the way, on Twitter, at Sloan, SLOANRACHMUTH. And the website, EdFirstNC, North Carolina, EdFirstNC. And I see all this stuff that you're posting about Duke University, and I'm not sure if it was UNC at the same time, but we're talking about prestigious hospitals in North Carolina affiliated with universities, and they're talking about transgender surgeries and puberty blockers and so on, extending to children of a very young age. Can you talk about how bad this is? We're not just talking here about teenagers and adults, right? We're talking about kids at a much younger age.
Well, surgeries are not performed on young children. I don't think that that's, going to happen anytime soon. But I will say, here's the evidence we have. The screening for children begins at around 2 or 3. Welcoming children of all ages is what we see. We see that the gender clinic, they call it, it's centered in pediatrics, and they're marketing to children of all ages, which is ridiculous. We've got Duke University with a doctor that is just crazy, who admits to having 2-year-old transgender patients. And get this, she said on a video that she has treated children as young as 8 years old with puberty blockers. So these are the facts that we have. But we also know, if you take the left at their word and at their literature, publications indicate that when children at a very young age are socially transitioned, that means dressed in a certain way, referred to by a different name and pronoun, 95% of them do go on to puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones. And then we know from there that a good percentage of those children do go on to surgery once they become 18.
This almost reminds me, years ago, I think this may have been a joke that goes back to the comedian Steve Martin, but he was like, our children are going to be ungrateful. We need to take revenge on them. And one way we take revenge on them as parents is we teach them wrong. So you point to a chair and call it a table. And this this was like a laugh line, 25 or 30 years ago. But it seems to me that when a parent takes a child, or an educator takes a child who's a boy, and says, you're a girl, and sort of all of the society then begins to treat the child that way, you create massive confusion. And perhaps at some point the child goes, well, I guess I am a girl. I'm new to the world. All these adults are telling me I am this, and I need to feel this way, and I need to dress that way. And so what you're saying is that the propaganda works.
It works very well, and it's more insidious than that. So we're finding that parents can take their child in, maybe they're not have an eating disorder, very young. And this happens very much. The doctor will come in and say, listen, Miss Smith, we need to really treat the root cause here. And the root cause is gender confusion or identity, et cetera. So that's the treatment. So what they're doing is they're getting people, in primary care settings, in a pediatric setting, in a psychological setting. We can see that very easily, and saying, hey, come with us. This is what we think. And so it's manipulating the parent. Now, a lot of parents, still think that anyone with a white coat should be listened to, should be obeyed. And these doctors, not all, a small percentage, but some are taking advantage of that, and they're hoodwinking the parents. And the parents are being told this: would you rather have a dead child or a transgender child? And they're being manipulated. This is a predatory practice we're talking about.
Sloan, what's the solution here? Is the solution here, well, part of it, of course, is public exposure of the kind that we're doing right now. But is it also legislative? In other words, you just ban this kind of stuff because it seems to be an abuse of the medical industry. In some ways, it's an abuse of educational practice. And what are the politics in North Carolina? And is this something that you might be able to achieve in your state?
Absolutely. I mean, our organization is chiefly responsible for something called the Youth Protection Act, and it will ban these sort of things under the age of 18. And that would include cross-sex hormones, that would include puberty blockers and surgery. However, the Democrat governor, Roy Cooper, vetoed that. And we are right now waiting for a veto override. I'm told it will happen next week. But every day that we go without an override is a day that a child is preyed upon for purposes of social justice and money. So we're asking for that to be done. But you and I both know legislation is not a panacea for this evil we're talking about. So enforcement would be 75% of the solution. That means really for concerned citizens to put pressure on these oversight committees within the General Assembly to update them. Investigative journalism, hugely important, just to see what's behind the kimono, if you will, to make sure that everything is up to snuff and that laws are being obeyed.
Excellent point. Hey, thank you very much for joining me. This is Sloan Rachmuth. She's president of Education First Alliance, North Carolina. The website, edfirstnc.org. Very informative. Thank you very much, Sloan. Love to have you back sometime.
Thank you, Denesh.